Hello and welcome. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up over the next hour or so, emotional scenes upon landing home for 24 inmates in the biggest prisoner swap deal since the start of the Cold War. US President Joe Biden cocks a snook at Donald Trump, hailing Western allies for their cooperation.
This deal would not have been made possible without our allies. Germany, Poland, Slovenia, Norway, and Turkey, they all stepped up and they stood with us.
US President Biden says killing of Hamas's political chief Haniyeh has not been helpful for the ceasefire after speaking with Israel's Netanyahu. Hezbollah fires dozens of rockets towards Israel late on Thursday night. The US recognizes Nicolas Maduro's opponent Edmundo Gonzalez as the winner of Venezuela's disputed presidential election. Brazil, Mexico and Colombia call for Venezuela to release full vote tallies. And in sports, Manu Bhaker and Isha Singh compete in the women's 25 pistol qualification rounds. Lakshya Sen to battle it out for the semi-final spot as well. Indian hockey team to take on Australia in pool match. Well, the United States and Russia completed a 24-person prisoner swap on Thursday, the largest in post-Soviet history, with Moscow releasing Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich and fellow American Paul Whelan in a multinational deal that set some 24 people free. Take a look at this report.
On a warm, steamy night, the freed Americans lingered on the tarmac at Joint Base Andrews to soak up the moment of their return to US. In a poignant display of emotion, tears of joy, US President Joe Biden, along with Vice President Kamala Harris, greeted the three American nationals released by Russia in a historic prisoner swap deal. The United States and Russia completed a 24-person prisoner swap on Thursday, the largest in post-Soviet history. West, including the US, released 16 Russian nationals, while Russia released 8 people. Biden termed it as a new feat of diplomacy, while Vice President Kamala Harris called the deal an extraordinary testament.
My job is to make sure, number one, they don't get them, and if they do, we get them back. I don't buy this idea that you're going to let these people rot in jail because other people may be captured. We will set out all the notifications to all the other countries, all our citizens, what countries not to go to, what to do, what not to do, and they got to pay attention. I got more work to do.
I'm very thankful for our president and what he has done over his entire career, but in particular as it relates to these families and these individuals, what he has been able to do to bring the allies together on many issues, but in particular this one. This is just an extraordinary testament.
High-level negotiations involved European allies and significant concessions, including resulting in the release of Russian assassin Vadim Krasikov by Germany.
I spoke to President Biden on the phone, who is very thankful for the cooperation of our two countries in this important matter. For the United States, it was especially important to see Wall Street Journal journalist Evan Gershkovich and ex-Marine Paul Whelan in freedom, in close and trusting cooperation with the United States and European partners. After months of confidential talks with the Russian side, it was now possible to release 15 people who were illegally held as political prisoners in Russia.
On the other side, Russian President Putin also met the returnees as they arrived.
I want to congratulate you all on your return to your homeland. Now, I want to address those of you who are directly involved in military service. I want to thank you for your loyalty to the oath, to your duty and your homeland, which has never forgotten you for a minute. And now you are home. All of you will be nominated for state awards.
Among the prisoners released by Russia, 3 are the US citizens. US journalist Evan Gershkovich was sentenced to 16 years after being convicted on espionage charges. The Wall Street Journal reporter was first arrested last March while on a reporting trip in the city of Yekaterinburg, 1,000 miles east of Moscow. Paul Whelan was given a 16-year jail sentence in 2020 after being arrested in Moscow on suspicion of spying in 2018. The ex-US Marine is a citizen of 4 countries: the US, Canada, the UK and Ireland. Russian-American journalist Alzu Kurmasheva was sentenced to 6.5 years in a medium security prison after a secret trial. She was an editor for Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, which is funded by the US government, and was convicted of spreading false information about the Russian military. The historic largest prisoner exchange between Russia and the West in decades could help US President Joe Biden burnish his foreign policy legacy in his waning months in office and boost Vice President Kamala Harris in her bid for the White House. Trump, however, was quick to question the deal and alleged that it involved exchange of money, a charge that White House subsequently denied. DD India reports.
It's been the biggest story since last evening when it happened. Now DD India's Dasha Chernashova joins us for more on it from Moscow. Good afternoon to you, Dasha. Is the Western sense of triumph and relief being reflected by the public reception of the prisoners by the likes of Joe Biden in the US also mirrored in Russia?
Well, there is certain understanding that this prisoner swap is indeed the triumph of negotiations, because it is taking place when the ties between Russia and the West are at the lowest level, and everybody understands how difficult it was to negotiate any possible prisoner exchange. Now, the Russian lawmaker Maria Butina, who used to be herself convicted in the US and has said that it is a very important victory for the negotiations, and she also said that the US has lost in these negotiations, saying that the list of people who were sent from Russia to the Western countries is indicating that there will be questions to those people in the West from the Western governments, because this list includes not just the US nationals such as Evan Gershkovich or Paul Whelan, but also the Russian political dissidents who have been labeled as foreign agents here in Russia and who have been sentenced to prison time. In Russia there is a very clear understanding that what's at stake here is that the return of the Russian nationals who have been serving for the well-being of Moscow for decades, and that is what matters at the moment. However, there are also questions as to why it was so important for Russia to bring back some of the people on the list, including Vadim Krasikov. The understanding is that he was top of those wanted in Moscow, and obviously there is a lot of understanding that it was very important for Moscow, given the very fact that Vladimir Putin himself traveled at night to the Vnukovo airport to meet those returning from the Western countries, and said that it will be time soon when they will be talking about the future of those prisoners. At the same time, the authorities here also underlined that there are still many of the Russian nationals who are kept in prisons in the US and other Western countries, and the work will continue.
Okay. Now, has the Kremlin given out any more information or opinion on how this deal got worked out, and what does it really mean for other possibilities of diplomacy getting an upper hand over conflict, for instance, in the case of Ukraine?
Well, obviously, Russia has always maintained that any negotiations of a kind have to be kept in secrecy and they should not be made public. And this is what we have seen. This deal has been conducted in secrecy, and there were some hints, there were some indications that the possible swap was in the pipeline. For instance, the expedition of the trial for Evan Gershkovich, Wall Street Journal reporter accused of espionage in Russia. The Kremlin didn't provide much detail with regards to how the deal has proceeded. We've heard, however, from the Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko, who said that the exchange between Russia, US and Germany was negotiated solely through the lines of the special services, and Belarus has managed to provide, he said, the assistance they have had an opportunity to provide. He also has said that the US president had no relation to the organization of this exchange and is only trying to build up his authority with what has happened. At the same time, there are obviously hopes that the deal shows that the sides can actually negotiate, that they do have the channels through which they can conduct and maintain dialogue. But at the same time, many analysts say that the audience should lower the expectations, because obviously it is not easy to find common ground between the countries that say their relations are at the lowest level.
All right, Dr. Cherishova, thank you for joining us from Moscow. Let's also bring in Professor Anshu Joshi, Center for American Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University, for more on this. Good afternoon to you, Professor Joshi. Now, clearly, there is reasonable ground to expect that this sort of triumph of diplomacy will be taken forward in areas where there has been little success so far, where talks are concerned, be it Ukraine or even other disputes or conflicts.
Definitely, Gautam, and we can clearly see that how in the times of open hostility between United States of America and Russia, this is a remarkable achievement and a big victory for diplomacy, as Biden has also stated, and it can be seen as a breakthrough between both relations of both Russia and United States of America. The biggest prisoner swap in the history since the Cold War era, wherein we can see that how notable people from both the sides have been released, and Turkey has mediated in this particular release. And as you asked, yes, it should be seen as a window of opportunity, wherein that's what India also keeps reiterating, that the nations should never shut the diplomatic doors. And we can see that different conflicts are right now on in different parts of the world, including this Russia-Ukraine war and what is happening between Israel and Hamas in the Levant region. So definitely taking an example, taking a cue from here, all the nations can take a learning and can learn from here, and can take such kind of similar issues onto the diplomatic table, and can find out the plausible solutions for similar cases.
Right, let's hope that this sense of positivity is taken forward, and the negatives that people are expecting might arise from it. For example, people are also saying that this could lead to more and more people being held captive as well in hostile countries when they visit them, and then their future can be negotiated upon. But let's hope that does not happen. Thank you for joining us for the moment, Professor Joshi.